I'm finna jump on Esther. How you doing, Esther? Where you at?
Good morning.
Good morning, Esther. Now you got this big piece right here. What is this require? And I'm gonna make it easier for you first. Let's do this. Wait a minute. All right, what does that require?
I'm forgetting.
That's okay.
I can only remember the brackets will show the method. Although I'm also confusing methods and function.
And in this case, it's a function. I'm just gonna delete some of these because I don't know why I got all this stuff opened up. As you can see, I'll be researching stuff too. All right, let me get rid of that. I don't need to be looking at that. All right. So the reason I want to do this, because as a developer, let's look stuff up. So require. All right, so JavaScript. So you can know in Node.js, require function is a built-in function to include external modules that exist in separate files. Require statement basically reads a JavaScript file, executes it, and then proceeds to return the export object. Now, that makes sense. When you read it, it makes a little bit more sense because remember, let's go over here. We have a require right here. That's why I let you know that your file is a module. And what it does, it says require is a built-in function. It's built in. You didn't write it. It's built in for us. It says to include external modules. It includes external modules that exist in separate files. So this is just one way of doing it, because when we get into library, we call it import. You're going to export, you're going to import, you're going to import. This is just the high level scratching your head part. You're not going to really do this in real life. You're not going to be using require like that. You're just going to be importing stuff because we're going to be working in libraries or working with frameworks. But this is where you learn this stuff. You learn how the stuff works up under the table. You see what I'm saying? Is the 80-20 rule. There's only 20% everybody sees, but there's 80% people don't see. Well, we want to make sure you understand how it actually works. So when you start using built-in functions and methods and stuff like that, you know how it works, as opposed to just, okay, I'm just going to throw a reverse function on it. Well, you need to know how to reverse it by writing it out, by using for loops and all that stuff. You got to know how to reverse it that way, as opposed to just throwing methods at it. It's good to throw methods at stuff, but if you can understand how it works, it's just going to make your life a whole lot easier. So that makes sense. All right. Always Google the stuff. Oh man. Okay, here we go. Always Google stuff to make sure you get an understanding of, to kind of help put it together. But the reason why you Google it is because you want to make sure you know how to Google it by understanding the terminology of it. So now you know that require, it allows you to go throughout the file and find other modules so you can use them in wherever you want to use them. But understand what that says, because like I say, import does the same thing. When we start talking about import, they're synonymous. Require imports. You're not going to write it this way like this. We're going to do it differently when we do imports, but it's the same results the same concept. Okay. So far, so good, everybody. Am I boring y'all? I hope I ain't boring y'all. But then again, I have a passion for this. Let's
Very
start.
good.
All right. So
Doing good.
now, all right. So let's put it all together. We know that we have this function called require, and it's going throughout the files looking for read line sync. How do I know I have access to read line sync? Because right here in this nice old package manager, this package JSON, I have a dependency called read line sync. That dependency I know is coming from this node module. And therefore, what happens is when require goes in and is looking, it's coming outside of this particular file here, this candidate testing. You're inside this candidate testing. It's coming out of this file and it's going through and it's searching for it. And the first place it's going to go to is going to go to that package JSON. And it said, okay, that package JSON has a dependency. I know that that dependency is inside of the node module. Now that node module is, I don't know where it is on here. I think it's, I don't know where it is on here, but it's hidden in here somewhere. And so I know it's a node module because I'm ignoring it. And it's going to go straight to that node module and look for it. But the reality of it is it understands how to find the paths. All of this stuff is built on paths. Like we said, like I was telling you earlier, this right here, this is a path right here. That line 16, that's a path. It knows how to find that path. And that's what it's doing, is looking for the path. And so it's important, it's good to know. So now read line sync, think like the compiler. It's coming down to line 1. This is the first line it sees. It sees that word const. It knows a keyword to a variable, and it's helping a variable to be declared that it's final. It lets the compiler know that this is final. This cannot be changed. And if you try to change it, I'm going to throw an error. And then it reads the input. It knows that input has something in it because it has the assignment operator to it. And then it goes in and looks inside at the value. What is that value? Okay, we have a require. The compiler knows that, okay, that require is going throughout the file and it looks for this particular modules. So the compiler know, okay, I got that module right there. All right, so I'm reading that. So now I know that all of this stuff is stored into this input. Now, I don't have to use a variable to get to this required read line sync. I can plug it in, hard code it in, but that's not best practice. You never want to do that. You always want to store everything in variables. All right, so good. So far, so good. All right, so now we're going to go down to the part where we're going to start reading. All right, so the next person on my list is James. James, let's go ahead. I want you to read line 8 for me inside the assignment instruction. This is your AC. This is your acceptance criteria. Go ahead and read it for me.
As for the candidate's name, look for to-do 1.1a in the starter code on the line below. This to-do comment to define a variable called candidate name with an initial value of the empty string.
Okay, explain to me now on line 6. Now, if I didn't have this here, didn't have it here, and sometimes you're not going to have, this is starter code. We're giving you the starter code. But let's say now I know a little bit now. You don't have none of this. You don't have none of that now. How would you do it?
Well, we need to define, look what it's asking us to do. We wanted to define a variable called candidate name. So we need to let candidate name assignment variable.
Now, how do you declare a variable?
With the assignment, what the hell's the name of that thing? Assignment operator.
Pay attention to what I said.
Oh, I'm sorry, with the parentheses.
Now, how do you declare a variable? Just declare it. Just declare the variable.
Oh man, I thought with the just assignment operator. Oh, we've done that with the let. We're declaring the variable.
There you go. That's why I want you to build your confidence.
Okay.
You got to know the difference between declaring a variable and declaring a variable and initializing. Because when we read the instructions here, it says define a variable called candidate name with an initialization value of an empty string. So declaring is one thing. Declaring with initialization is when you give it the value. And see, right now, if I just tell you to declare variables, that means the reason why you're doing that is because you're setting them up for later. And so why would you do that? Anybody wonder why would a person want to do that? Why would you want to just declare variables and not initialize none of them? Is that curious? Is anybody curious to why you want to do that? What's the use case for that?
For when you're going to capture information down the road, then you don't know when you want to change as the user's inputting information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the reason why you would do it up front, because you already know that you're going to need those variables. That's not the case all the time. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know when you're going to need a variable and what a variable name is going to be. But if you already know you're going to need 4 variables, you may go ahead and declare them up front just so that you can pull them in later. Now, what's the use case for something like that? If I'm working in React, I'm gonna be working in React, and I may need to create a hook. And in my hook, I'm using a use state hook. Well, I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to create a function inside of that hook. Now, that's setting it up in the beginning because use state is already got the functionality I need. I just got to give the names of what I'm going to call this stuff. And so I may have a couple of hooks that I want to create. So I may go ahead and name them now, and so that I can use them later. So here with the variable, what we did here, all we did was gave you the information up front. We already declared all the variables at first, and then you start filling in the initialization. Now, this is important to know. Let me go ahead and put these back because I deleted out. I wanted you to focus on what I was trying to get you to think. And pay attention to the wording here. The wording is going to give you clues on how to solve the problem. When I look at this right here, and this is from experience, I know when it said define a variable, I know how to define a variable. So that's a key that I need to define a variable. And with that with, it's letting me know, okay, it also wants me to initialize a value. So from my understanding from up until this point, I know that if I'm going to declare a variable, I'm going to have an assignment and I'm going to assign the value to that variable. And it says of an empty string. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is simple. That's a simple task. When you're new to this, that don't make sense because you ain't seen it before. But the more and more I keep going over, that's why I said let's go over it 2, 3, 4 times. Then you be like, that makes more sense to me. I'm able to plug this stuff in because I've seen that wording before. And then I seen wording similar to this because guess what? This word right here, initial, is going to give you different names. It's going to sound differently. It's going to say initial, initialize. When you start seeing those type of words, you know that, okay, I need to assign something to something. And then you start, and the more and more you go through these, remember how it reads. Because later on, we're going to ask you the same question with a different variation. It's going to be the same question, but we worded it differently. And you got to be able to pick up on those verbs. You got to pick up on those adjectives and be like, I think this is what they mean. So this is right here, understanding what we're asking you to do. It's a lesson all in itself. So we got that, right? So the next person on my list It's going to be Jordan. You hopped on. Did I? Let me make sure. I got moved around a little bit because some people jumped off. I haven't talked to Jordan. Jordan, you next.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jordan. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Go ahead and read B for me.
Look for to do 1.1b inside of the function. Ask for name.
I don't think we actually finished A, by the way, but
Well, we finished it. I'm just not gonna type it in because because I'm recording this, and
Yeah.
I don't want the people to see it because he said empty string. We knew that it was going to be an empty string right there. Yeah, so I just think I'm just not gonna type it in because I don't want people that come back to watch this and be like, oh, I ain't got to do the actual work. So we're just gonna be talking through it. All right, so go ahead and give me B.
Write code asking the user to enter their name into the program and store the values as candidate name.
Okay, Jordan, do you understand what that's saying?
Yes. We're going to set the function to ask for name, and then we're going to store it. So we're going to console log their message,
Okay.
their answer.
You can console log the message. That means we're going to, so here, let's read this again. It says write code asking the user to enter their name. So when you see that little small phrase, enter the name into the program, what's going to make you start thinking, because of going by what you already understand, if I want to get a person to give me their name, their information, that means I'm prompting them, right?
Yeah.
How does that work? Because you're writing this program and I need to prompt the user. Explain to me, not just give me the syntax, explain to me what it's doing.
It's a great question, Terrence.
And this is how we gonna learn. If I could tell you a little story real quick, you know how many years I struggled with this. I started teaching myself in 2012. It wasn't until 2016 when I got my first job with the help of Launch Code. I didn't know nothing. I struggled with JavaScript all the way up into 2019? I don't even think I didn't really understand JavaScript until I started teaching here at Launch Code 2 years ago. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It took me that long. And you know why it took me so long? Because I was always rushing to just get it done. And I never really savored the process. I didn't go through and fully take the time to understand it. When I finally got to that point to where I took the time to understand it, then a whole new world opened up to me. See, that question B, it's the same question right here on this B. But a lot of people, and 1.2, it's the same question, but it confuses people because they took their time to memorize the syntax. They memorized console.log. I mean, not console.log. You don't need a console.log right here. They took the time to remember, okay, I just need a variable because it says here, it says write code asking the user to input the name in the program and store the value as candidate name. Well, we told you candidate name. So you know it's a variable that you're going to store stuff in. We know that when I say store, I know that it's a variable. I know that a variable has to have a value inside of it. How do I get that value in it? I know I'm going to have to assign something to it. All right. So understanding whatever I want someone, when I want to prompt a user, I got to think about the tools that I already have access to. Well, what's the tool that I have access to? I know I have access to this readline sync. You may have other tools. You may have an alert box. You may have you got to understand all the different tools that can prompt me to do something. Well, requires just a function that goes look for the readline sync. Now, a lot of you, have you guys tested this yet? I've showed you how to do this. Whenever in doubt, go ahead and test out what's in a variable. You want to go ahead and test it out. I don't want to hit enter, but I'm going to run it. This is everything that's inside that readline sync. I want you to see it. One of the two things that should stand out is that prompt and that question. It's allowing me to understand how I can have access to different things or what it can do. Well, the word question, that method, that's a built-in method. You didn't build it, I didn't build it. But what that question is, it was written that is able to go in here and modify the question inside of that readline sync. Because if I do this, if I go down here and I write this function right here where I use the candidate name, and then I do the then I assign input, because input is the object that's holding the readline sync, all that information. And then I'm going to add that dot. I'm going to get access to it with that question method. Well, let's do this. Let me move this out the way because that's going to tabs open. They all just got to do some digging, but don't want us to stay too long on that. But the reason why I want to kind of point that out, because the more you understand why you're using things and why you're doing things, it'll be easier for you to solve problems later on. You see what I'm saying? So, like I said, back to you. Hold on for a second. Let me get my little thing back up. Jordan.
Yep.
So now you were thinking that, okay, let me get my participants. Okay, so you were saying that you had started off with console.log, but we know that's not what it's asking us to do, right? Did you say console.log?
I'm sure I did.
Okay.
Input.question, I guess is what you're looking for.
So we was talking about input.question. Now, let me ask you this. It doesn't matter how you use these fields, input fields. They always turn everything into a string. Everything that get entered in any field is going to be a string. What if I wanted it to be a number that I entered in? Do you know how to convert it?
No.
Okay. Well, we got to get some demos. I got to do some demos. I keep saying I don't want to type it in, but shoot, I might see if I can delete this later on. But we go try anyway. So let's look at that.
This was already due anyway, Terrence, you know?
Yeah, that's already done. But for future people, because pretty sure future people are going to find these videos.
Oh,
so here we go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do candidate name, candidate.
I got a quick question real quick.
Go ahead.
Quick question real quick. Up on 1A, which you asked me to do, the initializing the value of the empty string. So you put a single quotation mark. Could that be done with a double quote or could it be done with the parentheses as well? Or
no parentheses, not for strings. No parentheses for number. You don't use parentheses on anything on a value unless it's connected to a function or anything. But you can in JavaScript you can do either or. You can do double quotes, you can do single quotes. You just can't mix the quotes. So what that means yeah. So like right here in this, what is your name? I can do this.
Quotes within quotes and everything.
Yeah, but it's got to be a single quote on the inside. So it had to be double quotes on the outside, single quotes on the inside, unless I do an escape. I can use an escape if I'm going to do that. If I'm going to use the same quote, if I need to use the same quote,
Yeah.
because when the compiler reads and sees that opening quote and it gets to that next quote, it's going to close it out and it's going to give it an error. But if you don't put that escaper, what that escape tells the compiler, bypass this one and go to the next one.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that if it's a whole totally different quote. So if it's a double quotes for the opening and closing, you could put a single quote on the inside of it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So this is what I want to share. So we need to understand. Let me get rid of this console.log because I don't need that.